Welcome to Seattle's Sound Then and Now. I'm Owen Wright, your host for the show. Today we are interviewing a really good buddy of mine via Zoom from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Mr. David Hillis from Seattle. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, Owen. I haven't seen your beautiful face in a long time.
So we talked a little bit about what the show's about, and you've seen some of the watchcasts.
Yeah, I've been following you.
Maybe listen to maybe some of the pods, and trying to just keep it real organic and fun. And my first question to you is, when did we first meet?
Well, I was thinking about that, and I can't really think of an official meeting, but I do remember when I first came aware of the one known as the Sarge, Owen Wright. And that, from my memory, was I was in a band called MACE way
Yes.
back in the late '80s
And
there.
you were living in an apartment building on 35th.
Yeah, on Capitol Hill, I had a place. I don't know which one, but here's what my memory is. We used to go to San Francisco a lot to play because that's where our music was kind of
Yeah.
happening. And we'd come back and the music bank had just opened. And we'd get a room there for a few weeks and rehearse and then go try to go up and down the West Coast. That
Yep.
was kind of our trip. And I just remember showing up one day to this room we got, and this big, tall dude coming out. You were a little more on the glammier side of things, but it looked like you had just woken up. And he came out of a rehearsal room,
Oh Lord.
big and tall in the hallway, just kind of looking around like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "Whoa, there's that's who's this dude?" And then I'd heard about Mistrust, and of course, Jeff LaRue was singing for you, and I
The
knew Cole.
original good old days.
Yeah, and Tim Wolf, who was in Rottweiler, I knew them because of the Northwest Metal Fest and all that. So
Yep.
that's how I knew of you, and I went, who's that guy? Oh, that's Owen Wright. I'm like, oh, okay. That's my first like memory of you.
I think you kind of nailed it. That for me as well. Fuck, it was the early 80s.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was
I
music,
mean, jeez.
music band. I got to know you better later on, I think, with Raj and working with you and doing things like that.
Yep.
But we always, we're in the same circle, but we cross each other's
We always
paths.
cross paths at parties and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Oh, and at West Seattle party when I was playing with Ron Holt, because you liked the
Yeah.
name of our demo, our Suicide Bride demo.
So the show's called Seattle's Sound Then and Now. Back then, like when did you first love to listening to music? How old were you? Like were you like 5, 6 at your parents' house? Your mom was playing records or what?
Oh yeah, definitely. Man, from just right from the beginning, I grew up, first in Brooklyn. We didn't move out to Seattle, Washington State till junior high kind of period. So when I was back there was a neighbor who had a piano. I would gravitate towards that or any kind of toy instruments. And I had a cousin who lived with us, and he would play the Beatles and Elton John and stuff like that. So
Cool.
that's kind of what got me on. And then I was buying 45s like as soon as I can remember, saving, getting money to buy 45s and playing 'em on my cousin's
Yeah.
record player. And I just in from ever, like just always. And then getting into actually when we moved to Washington, I was upset that I had to leave, my friends and all that. And part of the bribe is when we got to Washington, is that I could take guitar lessons. So
What was your first guitar that you ever got?
I had this Memphis, it was called the brand Memphis, and it was
Yeah.
a Strat, tobacco burst Strat that had like the action was like a mile high. And you couldn't even press it down. My fingers couldn't even hit the
Little
neck.
did you know that it was actually a lap steel. Oh
Yeah,
well.
if it should have been a lap steel. And I kind of fought guitar for a while. I wasn't very good,
Yeah, none of us
and I
were.
didn't I wanted to play it, but I didn't wanna work at it, and it seemed so hard with this guitar. But once I heard it through a fuzz box, and then it changed everything. I went, "Oh, this is how it works."
Oh.
And then it just changed everything. Then I would learn how to play it no matter what, but I like
Sure.
the idea of being a rock star right from the beginning. That sat really well with
I'm
me.
I'm so shocked but not surprised. That is awesome. So leading up to, so you got your first guitar, started playing, learning how to play chords, you figured out distortion, and like what was the first band that you ever got together? Was it Mace? It wasn't Mace. So
Mace was the first band, but that's more because the name existed. That was the dream, drawing it on my peach sheet and book covers and stuff. But it was really just getting into, discovering hard rock, just like
Sure.
Boston was like a big one for me.
Yeah. Me too.
And then everything that was like that, Foreigner, and then heavier into Scorpions, and then this and that, and then discovering more like the British new wave of heavy metal. Then I was like fully into that, and that's kind of where Mace started with, the Iron Maidens and all that
That
kind of
was
stuff.
what,
So,
84, 85
yeah,
ish?
well, like,
Because Lipstick was going on with Paul Passarelli and Brett Miller. You guys
yeah,
had
all
Mace
that.
starting out.
Well, we were like coming out of Everett, so we were coming out of the north end. So, and that was like, right out of high school. So I graduated in '83. So there was nothing going on there at that time. So '84, we were metal, and we got on the Northwest Metal Fest, and then we met all the bands from Seattle on the east side. It was all about, us, we saw that there was a scene development, and we were like, we got to get part of this, or at least I was.
Yeah.
And I got my license, and all I did was like drive to the East Side, go to Easy Street Records, the one in West Seattle, and that's how I met Jeff Gilbert. And then we were on a
Yeah.
roll, and we went to Studio One and recorded. But then what changed us is we met the guys from The Accused, because they had moved to North End, and
Yes.
they were getting into metal, and we were getting in, and then they were influencing us into the punk hardcore stuff, and then we went down that road,
Yeah.
and really the thrash metal
Well,
thing.
Mace was a heavy metal speed band ish.
Yeah, because we were originally, I mean, honestly, we were one of the original crossover bands. We were like the first.
You guys were really quite good, man. I mean,
Well, we were terrible, but we had really good. We had a lot of attitude and a lot of energy.
yes.
We were sloppy and all that, but we were for real. We were there. We were showing up.
Yeah.
And we always caused like something would always, like, there'd be a riot or something would always happen. So we left this trail of destruction, which kind of,
Guerrilla Gardens.
yeah, like everything we did.
Whenever anybody played there is always a fucking huge ass fight.
Yeah, there was always something, or we played with Culprit a few times, and then the show would get canceled because about we would, our singer would cause a slam dance thing, and they didn't know how to handle that then, and so we were always the bad guys, but it kind of helped propel our popularity.
You have a show scheduled and the show gets canceled because when somebody was pulling a guitar out of the guitar case, they found a hand grenade and the police got called. That's a true story.
It was always something. We were, we were getting thrown into punk rock concerts, and yet, I looked so metal, and that would cause issues, and so we'd antagonize issues everywhere we went, and we kind of found out that was kind of helping us, so we just went with it.
Yeah. Well, at that point, you kind of just got to do what you got to do. We are going to take a quick commercial break and get back to Seattle's sound then and now with engineer, music producer, and one of my best friends, Mr. David Hillis. We'll be right back. As you know, David, I have a lot of coffee table reading stuff around my house. Guitar magazines, art, photography.
Great stuff to browse through between setting up the pod and jamming.
One thing that's been on my coffee table forever since 1995 is an issue of Mansplat. Have you ever seen this thing?
Oh man, there's nothing better than start your day with a bit of mansplat. Really though, this newspaper is fucking gold.
Made right in my town of West Seattle since 1995. Mansplat is an adult twist on all things pop culture, guitars, rock, monsters, cars, chicks, booze, food, TV, and movies, all thrown into a Mad Magazine style blender and printed into a newspaper tabloid format.
There's so much in this magazine/newspaper. Awesome segments, ones like Ask Dr. Blast.
Some of those columns made it into some pretty big magazines as well.
Oh yeah.
If you go to mansplat.com, they're currently offering 15 out-of-print back issues for only $15. Man, that's a lot of splat.
Skeet, skeet, skeet.
What? Mansplat.com. You know, Dave, whenever I call you, you're always working, whether it be on a film, your daily gig, writing a script, editing the pod.
There's always something to do, that's for sure.
I hear you. Between this pod, running my company, writing music, it could be tough to keep up with those little pesky household tasks,
Oh, you
right?
betcha.
Luckily, Des Moines Cleaners has your dry cleaning needs taken care of. Open from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., closed on Sundays. I actually know the couple that own it. They're super sweet. You could take one task off your shoulders with the cleaners for all your dry cleaning and laundry needs. Des Moines, the Cleaners. Welcome back to Seattle Sound, then and now. God, I just have a hard time getting that right. Director Dave kills me every time I say it. Cut. Seattle's Sound, then and now. Thanks, Dave. Anyways, let's get back to, we're talking about Seattle alternative, speed metal, punk. What year was it, like between 84, 87, the Seattle punk scene? Like you were talking about Accused and these other guys you started meeting, and kind of everybody's kind of melding in, mishmashing into this, which the scene I was in was different from that because it was more of glam metal.
Yeah, well, it's interesting too because what made my particular band so interesting is because I really like the glam stuff too. So I was really like throwing everything into the pot. But like I said, we started hitting in the fanzines, because we immediately put out a record before we really should ever even been allowed to record. And
I heard that you guys had the album cover already designed before you were even a band. Is that true or not?
yeah, we were just we were I was really ambitious then, so I was like really pushing for things. Looking back
I
on
remember
it.
you were getting it done. I kept hearing your name all over the place, and that was great times.
Yeah, I don't know where it went all wrong, but I certainly was trying. And so that afforded us to tour a little bit and seeing what was going on in other scenes. So when we'd come back, I kind of felt like we'd already kind of made it, because we were so young, and to us, just the fact
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it was cool, and we were meeting. I worked in record stores when I was back there in Everett and stuff. So I was meeting everybody that I was buying the records for the record store for. And so to me, that was like I made it pretty much. So by the time, grunge hit or 90s hit, I was like, felt like I'd already done it all. Because to me, that was success. Even though it wasn't, we didn't really do anything, it seemed to me we were living the dream.
So that's a good way to segue into this next set of questions. You started engineering and helping out at London Bridge Studios up at Lake Forest Park with Rick and Rosh Parashar. How long did you intern up there before you became like a second engineer?
Well, I didn't really intern as much as I never had any ambitions to be an engineer. Because we started recording so early, when I was in high school still, I was using odd jobs to buy studio time at places. So I was like going in early, but it was all for me to be, on stage, be a rock star. I didn't have any interest in that stuff. But being around it enough, I started, I knew a little bit, started learning more and more about it. But it just so happened I was trying to form different bands that just weren't really taking. And I met in one of those, I'd bought some time at London Bridge to try out some of my songs and ideas. And that's how I'd met Rick. And Rick kind of just said that Don Gilmore was leaving at the time, who was working under him, and that he might be looking.
I remember Don, yeah.
So I just thought, well, this would be a killer opportunity maybe to get some free studio time or something.
Sure.
And so he kind of, invited me. I hounded him for weeks, just hounded him because I thought, well, I don't want to I just thought it might be a good way. It seemed like a good thing to do, and he finally had me come in, and I had all these demo tapes of me and stuff. He didn't want to hear any of them, didn't care. Just kind of wanted to see if, we could just hang and go to the Vogue, and that was cool. Show up again on this date, and I showed up during the
Frontier Room, the Vogue.
yeah, showed up to the mixes of Temple of the Dog, and that I kind of sat through, and he showed me some things, and just kind of seeing what he was doing. And then I was like throwing in right away, like first Pearl Jam demo and first Love and Ice stuff.
Great Portland band.
He just threw me in. There was no and there was no he didn't teach me anything really. He just said, "Here you go, and you better figure out, and you better be quick." And I just had to start figuring out patch bass. Really intimidating. I felt I was going to get fired.
Kind of like how we learned how to play guitar.
Yeah, I thought I was going to get fired every minute of every day. It was the last day, I thought, for sure, all the time. And but it was cool because like my first stuff doing with him was major label stuff. So it was just like, I mean, I look back thinking, I wish he could have softened the blow a little bit. There are some things he could have taught me to make things easier, but he just threw me right in. So yeah, I didn't really intern. I was like, we were making records right away.
Right.
And that was really cool because I'd never, all the studio time I had was always quick and not much budget. And all of a sudden I'm doing, wow, this is how real records are being made. So that was like, wow.
So when you were working on those records with him and doing your thing, what records were you guys working on?
The first things, like I said, was the month-long Pearl Jam demo we did before they started the record, and the Love and Ice record.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the Love and Ice record was the actual real record I worked on, where A&R guys were flying in and all that.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so that's where and I think what was saving me with Rick is that he was smart to know that I could kind of gel with the bands better, being a band guy and a guitar player guy. I understood the amps and the pedals, and that wasn't really his forte at the time. And so I worked good as a.
You were like boots on the ground compared to him being the producer guy, which he always wanted to be that guy.
Yeah, that was his role anyway. So it was a nice way for him to communicate with the band.
Yeah,
and I picked up on that. So I just went that way. So yeah, I mean, it was just right into the fire. And then I had nobody had any ideas any of those things would do anything. So I still didn't have any ambition of and I still was just going for the ride.
And then you also were you did some of the sessions with Jerry and the guys doing SAP.
Yeah, so did SAP, and I actually did the demo. Well, they did a version of the Dirt record that they scrapped. So we basically recorded Dirt, and then they just got rid of it and redid it with Dave Jordan.
At that point, you also had a band, Sybil Vane, and I want to talk about that because I think that's like a really poignant band that I really liked.
That nobody knew.
Tell us about Sybil Vane.
Well, see, so I look back on this and it's really interesting because 90 to 94, like so much happened.
Yeah.
And I never really put it together until decades later, but I went, wow, like a whole lifetime happened in 4 years.
Yes.
Because I started working as an engineer on major label records that were huge. And then I was signed in the beginning of 94, end of 93, beginning of 94. So within that time, like my whole world changed.
Everybody's did. We all got record deals and we got to quit our day jobs. It was a weird time.
Yeah. And I wasn't even working in and putting a band together yet or anything, but we were just in this whirlwind of things happening. And at that point I was already 29. So I thought my days were over. If you didn't have a deal by 30, forget it. So
it was a whirlwind of buffoonery and rock.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, we did nothing. The record got dropped right away. But the year and a half that we were on the label, well, we were actually signed to Polydor, then got dropped like a month later, re-signed to Island.
I seem to remember you guys opening up for some pretty big bands.
Yeah, we got to do a lot of things.
And you toured.
We didn't do much of touring. We did, but it wasn't nothing to really talk about. The MACE ones were much bigger and funner. But we did get the royal treatment. Like we were a big signing for Island. Like we were supposed to be the next big thing. We had big management and a big video. The guy who did our video had just done that little video called Teen Spirit.
Yes.
So we thought it was supposed to be this big deal. So we got it's like we were giant rock stars already. Flew us everywhere. They spent money on us.
You guys Sybil Vane reminded me of another version of another band that I love, Butch Vig's band, who is the producer of Nevermind and a bunch of other stuff for Nirvana band, Garbage.
Right. And that's the irony of it all. So, when everything ended and we were dropped and all the things fell through, every ace card up our sleeve, we had it all and it was over. Garbage was like literally on the radio like the next day.
I know. I remember it. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why?
Well, I'll tell you, we did a month-long radio promotion tour, basically to go in every state in the United States and kiss butt to radio programmers to please play our song.
Yeah.
And everyone would say, and this is no exaggeration, everyone would say, well, we're already playing Hole and we just added the Cranberries. And we were on the same label as Cranberries, so they were right ahead of us in each spot.
So why can't you lump us in with those bands, for fuck's sake?
So at that time, what people don't realize, at that time, they would not allow more than 1 or 2 women on rotation.
That's crazy.
I know, it was the pre-Me Too movement, all that stuff, and it was literally 6 months later when 9 out of the 10 bands were female fronted.
Yeah.
For a bit, and we just missed that cusp by months, and that's really the story, and it just all fell through. We lost the big summer tour, and we lost.
Back then, it was really all about your A&R guy championing for your band.
Yeah, well, they were champion. They put a lot into us, but radio wasn't responding.
Back in the day, the A&R guys were the dudes going to the radio stations, who their contacts were, and unfortunately, if your A&R guy was the A&R guy for Garbage or whoever, like you said, the Cranberries or any of those bands, God, it was just luck of the draw who they're gonna push.
Yeah, there was a lot of little luck of the draw things because we really did have a lot in our favor. But it was a ride, though. I mean, like I said, we got to do a lot of stuff, and but it was also, it messes with your head because it was like we were in New York, we're in LA, we're everywhere. Oh, you're going to be the biggest thing everywhere we went, and then all of a sudden it's crickets, and nobody knows who you are. And the odd thing is, in Seattle, we were unknown because we never got a chance to play the clubs really or anything. We played with Mad Season and like a couple Rock Candy shows by ourselves. There's like we didn't get a chance to really build a crowd in Seattle, which the labels would always go, how come you don't have a crowd in Seattle? And we're like, well, because since we've been signed, you guys have had us everywhere but Seattle. So we didn't really get to build that, and we were a little bit different, and it was that the downside of the grunge thing, and we weren't really grunge necessarily, but
I'll tell you what, I'm glad that we all got to experience some really fun stuff in our lives, and I'm really glad to have you on the show, Seattle's Sound Then and Now. I got it right finally. Hey, we're gonna take another commercial break for Seattle's Sound Then and Now. We've been on the Zoom line with Mr. Dave Hillis. You can find Dave on davehillismusic.com for all of your mixing needs and or recording. We're going to be right back after a short break. Thanks, guys, for listening. Another family-owned business I love to go to. That's where I met you, Dave.
Well, that doesn't sound good, does it?
Located at Burien at 5 Quarters Plaza off First Avenue, Burien Liquor and Wine is a family-owned and operated with a small, tight-knit staff who, I know everybody that works there, you guys are awesome, and the largest selection of wines and spirits that you'll find west of I-5. Deals all day, and they even display out-the-door pricing. Open 7 days a week from morning to night. Burien Liquor and Wine has your adult beverage needs taken care of.
I go there every morning.
Dave, you own a home, right?
I do. A townhome, but yeah.
Being a homeowner has its perks, but also it's a lot of work.
Oh, for sure. Loads of stuff I didn't think about. Like one of my showers is leaking into the wall and floor. Part of my deck is starting to give out.
There's always something that needs fixing, or maybe you want to upgrade in the master bathroom, redo your deck, have an island put into your kitchen with a hood over it.
Don't even get me started with the kitchen. We need a total overhaul with that, and I have no idea where to start.
There are professionals who can help design and develop that for you, like Design Develop, local construction company that specializes in just that, designing and developing all those upgrades in your home to make it your home. Design, develop for all your construction needs. Let's talk about, so you're in your studio in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where you're in your mixing suite. What are you doing? What's going on now with Dave Hillis, and what are you producing, and what are you mixing, and what's going on?
So when I came out here, I wasn't really sure what musically I was going to do. Pittsburgh isn't really a market. Well, there really isn't. If you're not in Nashville these days, there's pretty much nowhere. But when I got out here, I was kind of out, not doing a lot for a while, dealing with family stuff. But when I got here, I got a call to go down to Nashville and speak, and that kind of got the ball rolling again, and met people down there. And then just so happened when I got here, a new Neve room studio opened up here. So I immediately contacted them and say, hey, what's up with you guys? And made a partnership with them, and kind of got into the local Pittsburgh scene, and just advertising online and stuff. So I started doing a lot of remote work, whatever local work there was here. And what's interesting here is that I started working with bands from places I would have never expected, like Ohio and West Virginia, and things out here that who would have ever thought. So I ended up building my own mix room here, just so it's got a, Pro Tools room and a little overdub room so I can do, guitar overdubs or fixed vocals or whatever like that. It's like a creative room, really. But there's a couple nice studios in town, so I can always work out of them and kind of float between
So
those.
you can go to those bigger studios, record all the basic tracks, and then bring everything back to your mixing suite.
Right. So that's kind of what I designed it for, so that there's not the budgets there used to once be in the 90s and things like that, with the record labels kind of gone. So it makes it more affordable and doable, and you're not looking at a clock as much, trying to rush everything, especially when it comes to mixing. So it makes sense to have my own spot to do those types of things, and just to have, just to have your own creative space. So yeah, that's kind of what I do now. And with how it is now, I mean, I mix records from people from Texas or Florida or wherever they'll send me.
Do you have a name of your company and your?
Yeah, it's just my name, Dave Hillis Music is how you find me online.
So everybody should, across the U.S. or wherever, call Dave.
DaveHillisMusic.com.
What else? What are you working on right now? Like, what's in the?
Well, funny enough, I'm just starting mixes on a Seattle band. How funny is that?
Is that right?
Yeah, a band called Black Knight Crash. I mixed their first record years ago, over 10 years ago back there. They're like a, kind of post-punk shoegazing band. They're on KXP all the time.
Who's in the band?
A guy named Jim Biggs. He kind of goes through a lineup a lot. They have a number of records out.
Okay. So back in the day when you were working at London Bridge, we were recording on a cool old Studer, big 24-track board.
I recorded you there.
Yes. Tell us briefly about how recording went back then, and then take us into the digital age for then and now.
It's funny because I talk about that a lot, because it gets asked a lot in different things I do, especially because I think at our age, we're kind of at that cusp when things went from tape to digital, to zero to ones, to computers. And yeah, everything I did back then at London Bridge, it was all pre-Pro Tools. So we were doing everything going to tape, cutting tape with a razor blade and punching in and all that. So I mean, I could talk forever about this, but I think
That's what Dave, the director, is hoping for.
bands and people were so much more rehearsed, and we were really going for playing through things. There was no delete button or undo button or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, the technology was totally different. I think there's so many cool things about how we do things now. I think it's kind of hurt somewhat the art form of record making. That was how a lot of the classics that we hear on the radio were made. There's definitely an art form that's been lost in that sense. But at the same time, there's so many great things, that unbelievable things you can do now. So it's just like anything. You adapt, and you take the best of both. I feel privileged that I got to learn under those circumstances. I think those are some basics in there that really, when working with newer and younger upcoming engineers and people who want to get into it, there's just no way to really teach them, because you don't have you don't have the time in the studio or the ability to like go back and learn those things and and you have to be up on top of stuff. So there's no time to learn some of those basics, and some of the most, like just arranging and things like that where they were done.
Do you remember when you guys flip-flop from 2-inch tape, the Studer, and the big Galactic board?
Yeah, I remember it.
How was that learning curve?
Well, it's interesting because now I talk so much about the old school way, and I actually own the tape machine from London Bridge now.
Now, doesn't everybody want to do it the old school way now, right?
They do, but then once they see how difficult it is, they don't. It's pretty funny. I was the guy rooting for getting into the digital because I was already playing with samplers and things like that. I always had an interest for that. So I was like really pushing for going to Pro Tools, and Rick was dragging his feet, which is kind of funny because he was quite into drum machines and things like that too. But as far as recording, he was staying with tape. And as it progressed and got better and better, it finally hit a point where the bit rate and the quality got better. And once we recorded something that way and he heard back, he just flipped. He flipped like overnight hard and did not look back. And I came back to the studio, and the remote for the tape machine was cut. It wasn't even unplugged. It was cut.
Oh, shit.
And it was put back into the live room behind the piano. And I was like shocked. And from then on,
it's like a graveyard.
Then he had no interest in tape machines whatsoever. Once the digital format, once Pro Tools proved that he could make a record on it and the sound quality didn't suffer, he loved it because he also loved manipulating arrangements, and it made it much more easier for him to do that.
And also what's crazy too is, and you can literally make a Grammy Award winning album and or 3 in your bedroom like Billie Eilish did with her brother, who's a genius,
right.
Digital, wicked, evil genius.
I will argue though, Rick's, if you notice, all the great records we talk about from that era and from not only Seattle, but everywhere, were all done pre-Pro Tools. They were all done on tape, the old way of writing and recording. All those classics were done that way. There's not as many classics.
Were you hanging out on the Temple of the Dog sessions?
Yeah, so I came in, my first time with Rick was during the mixing. So the band wasn't really there during that mix.
After they recorded that, did they kind of just let Ricky go and do the mixes? And
yeah, it was kind of unorthodox because they weren't really looking at that as a thing. It was kind of an exercise for them, I think, really, with Chris.
Well, it was kind of a memorial to Andy.
Right. It was a memorial, and they were just started, the demoing some of Stone's music and stuff, and Mike had just started playing with them. So, I mean, it was really that. So it wasn't like a band situation, a normal thing. So, yeah, it was a little loose like that. They came in and did, and I knew they were there recording. I remember that. That's me and Rick started talking. Fantastic record. It's recorded. So it's the essence of London Bridge. It's the London Bridge sound. It's just the basic meat and potatoes, microphones, no special tricks, just your regular mics, your standard mics up through the board to the tape machine. That was just it. And really good songwriting with really great players. And it was done in 10 days and no fancy effects anywhere or nothing. It was just straight up.
David, thank you so much again for being on our show, Seattle's Sound Then and Now.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody, David Hillis from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I have a feeling you're going to be a repeat offender on the show. That was super good, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Anytime. It was good talking with you.
We're going to sign off. Peace, everybody.